After all the talk about state legislatures changing the slate of electors to support Trump or blocking it, we have this story from Channel 3000. Could lawmakers mess with Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes? Possibly. But they do say the Democratic governor could block the effort. And that's the most important point. To kind of round things off in today's series of segments, for those that aren't familiar, all of this stuff appears on iTunes and Spotify. And the format of it is my 4 p.m. segment is the first. So this will be the last. Can this actually happen? The answer is yes. It's powerful. It could be Trump's path to victory, but the governors could try to stop it, which is why the PA Republicans said they would take it up with the Supreme Court if they had to, and then they could win. Because the Supreme Court could say if the state legislature, they're ultimately the ones who have the power to determine who the electors are. If they vote for it, it's done, regardless of what the current law could be. Here's the story from Channel 3000. They say, when Wisconsin voters took to the polls on November 3rd, they were not actually choosing among Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and third-party candidates. Rather, they were voting for a slate of 10 partisan electors who would pledge their support for the winner of the popular vote at the Electoral College. The indirect process by which Americans elect a president has been seized upon by some Trump allies, hoping to leverage unsubstantiated allegations of fraud in certain key states, including Wisconsin, to push forward a slate of electors who would support Trump instead of President-elect Biden. The move would be in defiance of the outcome of the popular vote, which Biden won in Wisconsin by about 20,600 votes. But I must say, doesn't matter. The popular vote is not how we choose the president. We are not a democracy. We are a republic, or a constitutional republic. In an emergency petition filed Tuesday with the Wisconsin Supreme Court, a group of voters is asking for just that. The group claims that more than 144,000 votes were illegally cast in the November 3rd election. That includes an estimated 96,000 from voters who listed themselves as indefinitely confined and therefore not required to present a photo ID, but whom the petitioner claimed were not. The petition also alleges that more than 12,000 votes cast for Republicans were not counted. The Wisconsin Voter Alliance also claims that election officials violated state law by accepting more than $6 million from a nonprofit financed by billionaire Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. The Center for Tech and Civic Life funded activities including boosting absentee voting and poll worker training in Green Bay, Kenosha, Madison, Milwaukee, and Racine. The group has an ongoing lawsuit against the cities making the same claim. Days after the election, Republican Assembly Speaker Robin Vos ordered an investigation into Wisconsin's election results, alleging mail-in ballot dumps and voter fraud. Republican State Rep. Joe Sanfilippo said the results of that investigation could and perhaps should lead the state to nullify its outcome. If an investigation shows these actions affected the outcome of the election, we need to either declare this past election null and void and hold a new election, or require our Electoral College delegates to correct the injustice with their votes, Sanfilippo said in a November 9th statement. In a recent statement to the media, Vos said the legislature would not become involved in changing the current system. Under our statutes, we have no part in the process, he said. But Tuesday's emergency petition asks the court, which is dominated 4-3 by conservatives, to void the election and order that the choice of the presidential electors revert back to the state legislature. This is significant. They do have over 100,000+ indefinitely confined voters. That's easily provable. You could easily look at that and say, makes no sense. We can't accept it. Void those. Trump wins. Or say, we got to do a do-over. We can't. Trump wins. What would happen is they would have no electoral votes. Contingent election would happen. Trump would win. I am not trying to suggest that will happen. I'm saying that's what they're talking about. They say the legal action is the latest in a series of more than 30 lawsuits alleging fraud and impropriety filed by the Trump campaign and its allies in battleground states. Its allies, keyword, because Trump hasn't filed that many. Most of those legal challenges have been thrown out or voluntarily withdrawn. Meanwhile, a partial recount initiated by the Trump campaign in Wisconsin's Milwaukee and Dane counties has challenged several long-standing voting processes with tens of thousands of ballots in question. Although legal experts say discarding that many votes would be a long shot. I agree. Battleground states that Biden won, but which were subject to legal challenges, have begun to move forward. Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Nevada certified their results this week. Arizona is due to certify on Monday, and Georgia certified its results on Friday, but is conducting a second recount at the request of the Trump campaign. After a long delay, the Trump administration also has freed up funds for Biden's transition. According to state law, The results of Wisconsin's election must be certified by December 1st. Under federal law, the winning slate of electors cast their votes in the Electoral College on December 14th. Legislators do not have a role in this part of the process, legal experts say. Nevertheless, legal and political challenges to this year's election have raised questions of whether a state's election outcome can be subverted by officials who favor a different result. The answer is yes. The short answer to that question is no, said Paul Nolet, and we'll talk about it. A professor of political science at Marquette University. The longer answer is technically yes. Just depends on how your framing goes. But the reality is the legal and political challenges, may be substantive, but the outcome can be subverted by the state legislature, as I've been talking about, as we've seen. Quote, much of the law is not clear. And because it's been on the books for so long, but not challenged in the way we're seeing now, it creates some avenues for messing around with in ways that weren't anticipated when these laws were passed. The Electoral College that we have today is not like the one the framers imagined, said Robert Alexander, a professor of political science at Ohio Northern University and the author of the 2019 book, Representation and the Electoral College. Article 2, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution lays out the concept of electors, how they are appointed, and when and how they will vote on a given candidate. At the time, electors were envisioned as having discretion, giving states some amount of control over the electoral results. But the concept was fragmented in its design. And throughout the ensuing decades, Electoral College norms and laws shifted, leading increasingly to the system we see today. They say members of the U.S. House and Senate meet in joint session to count electoral votes in 1921, meaning we've really changed the system. It used to be much more up to the electors to decide who should be the president, and you were nominating the elector because you thought they were the right person for the job, but everything kind of got mashed up and changed, and now we're like, I vote Trump. And you're giving your vote to the elector who could decide to do what they want. Now, Supreme Court ruled on this earlier this year. The electors are appointed by the state legislature, and they're bound by what the legislature wants. Well, there you go. There may be laws on the books binding what the legislature can do, but the PA legislature said they're going to take it to the Supreme Court. Take that power back, they said. The standard in Wisconsin and in 47 other states is that the winner of the state's popular vote takes all the state's electors. In Maine and Nebraska, electoral votes are appointed based on the statewide winner and the winner in congressional districts. State laws do differ on specifics. For example, the exact process of verifying the results and the precise body that does so. They say the U.S. has had contentious elections before. During the 1886 election, 4 states' results were disputed, and Congress had to step in. The Electoral Count Act of 1887 was enacted to provide a framework during disputed elections and to determine the means by which states certified their election results. But the law's exact requirements are not entirely clear because the Electoral College Act is notoriously poorly written. Casting electoral votes is usually such a pro forma thing that no one even thinks about it, he said. But the spirit of the law is clear. The choice of the electors is meant to reflect the will of the people. While the state legislatures have the power to set up a system of choosing electors, it doesn't mean that you set up a system of choosing electors, and then if you don't like those electors, you replace them. It's setting up the process in the first place. Then once they're chosen, the state's legislature's role is done. However, what if the election is broken? That's not what they're telling you. What the Republicans are saying is not, we just don't like the results, so we're going to change it. What they're saying is, we can't determine that this was a free and fair election, so we better intervene and then just block the electoral votes altogether or appoint them for who we think should get them. That's actually reasonable. They say, as established under state law, the first Tuesday in October is in presidential election years. Officials from both the Democratic and Republican parties convene at Wisconsin State Capitol and nominate one slate of electors per party, according to University of Wisconsin Law School. Each slate contains 10 electors. They're typically chosen based on loyalty to the party. For example, this year's Wisconsin Democratic electors include Governor Tony Evers and Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, et cetera, et cetera. Barring a significant change under the Electoral Count Act, for example, evidence of widespread interference or fraud, there are no more opportunities for the state legislature to become involved or to change Wisconsin's handling of electors. That's technically not true. And I'll jump to the end on this one. They're saying the fraud allegations are being dismissed. Faithless electors are no longer in play because of Supreme Court rulings. But here's why what they were saying before isn't necessarily true. The power rests in the state legislature. As we're seeing in Pennsylvania, they're fighting to get that power back specifically for them, and they'll go to SCOTUS. And SCOTUS can say, regardless of what the laws of the state are, if the state legislature decides they're the ones who appoint, the federal government recognizes the state legislature, not the governor or anyone else. Meaning, there could be a law in the books. The state legislature could have passed that law. And now they could say, we hereby certify these electors. And the Supreme Court says, we take the electoral votes from those determined by the state legislature, not by Secretary of State or the governor. So the governor is going to say, here's what the law says. Supreme Court's going to say, what does the legislature say? I'm not entirely sure how it's going to play out. I don't know if that's the argument they'll use. What I am saying is this is political war. That means any and all arguments are on the table. And they will take whatever they can get if they want to win. Now, I'll tell you, I'm not convinced Republicans are going to be all that excitable, I guess. I think they're going to lay down and just be like, that's what we saw in Michigan with the certification. So we'll see how things play out. If you think Donald Trump is done fighting, you're wrong. If you think he has no path to victory, you're wrong. I think the likelihood any of this happens is slim to none. But I've seen crazier things happen, so what can I say? I might be wrong. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tomorrow at 10 a.m. Have a happy Black Friday, and I will see you all then.